Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome to this episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. This is a really beautiful episode. A man called Rick William, and he'll introduce himself later on, but I've been a big admirer of his work, and it was great to sit down and talk to him about the topic of really the game of life, creating your dream life, creating personal freedom, living the life you want to, living your life from your deepest heart's desire, your soul's purpose, is really what we talk about. We get into really getting over shame at the beginning. We talk about some somatic practices that you can use to start to become more in tune with your emotions, with yourself, with your intuition, with your inner knowing, your inner guidance. We spend a bit of time talking about that. So there's some great topics covered in this, some great pieces. And he's a really beautiful man to sit down with. Very calming, very relaxed conversation, very easy to listen to. But before we get into that, there'll just be some, little before business, normal things. If you're a regular listener and you haven't done, please go and, go and review, subscribe, wherever you do listen to your podcast. If that's Apple or I know Spotify don't actually allow you to rate, review, but whatever you do, if you can go to Apple, that's amazing. It makes a huge difference for me. It allows me to get in contact with more men, more people, more women who want to listen to this message, listen to the message of the many guests that I've had over the last couple of years. So one request from me. And the other bit of business before we get into the episode is really some up and coming events I've got. This is coming out on the 1st. So if you're listening to this in the morning, I've got a wonderful workshop around mindful masturbation, which is really helping men turn their masturbation, their wanking, from being this thing that happens when they're stressed and they feel uncomfortable into something that nourishes their body, that creates a healing, that creates more connection with themselves and then the partners that they are later with as well. And it's a beautiful workshop that I put together. So I'm looking forward to doing that for the first time. So please come along to that. One on the 9th of September, which is around boosting your sexual performance. I've run this a few times, and this is purely holistic kind of techniques and advice and exercise you can do to just really go from ejaculation being something that just happens to you to having a choice. Simple as that, being a choice when you decide to come or not. And I got another workshop on the 16th of September, which is a tantric massage, which is a couples only workshop that I run with my partner Orsa. This is another really beautiful one. Couples always leave this feeling deeply connected with each other, learning things about each other in each other's bodies and, pleasure they didn't realize they could have from certain things. That's a couples only workshop. I highly recommend it if you're in a couple and, you want to try something new together. It's a beautiful way to learn, a beautiful way to reconnect through this workshop. So I highly recommend it. And I have one I'm running again with my partner also, which is a guide to tantric foreplay, which is on the 30th of September. That's for both couples and singles. And we're just talking about how to turn your foreplay, turn your beginnings of intimacy and sexual intimacy into something that feels tantric, that feels very present, feels deeply loving and connected. That's really the aim of that workshop as well. And as always, all my workshops are recorded. So if you hear the workshop and you think, oh, that's interesting, but I can't make the date, or I feel a bit nervous about, attending, being on screen. We don't have to be on screen, but, you know, being there and being seen. Still sign up, and then you get the recording. I send out the recording to anyone who has attended. Has purchased a ticket. So feel free to do that as well. That works really beautifully. Quite a number of people quite commonly do that. They buy tickets and then they just watch it in their own leisure. So feel free to do that as well. And yeah, other than that, that's it from me, actually. That's it from my requests. Yeah, and we'll just jump into the episode with Rick. Enjoy. So, hello, listeners. Welcome back for another episode. And this week, I have a real colossus of a man who I've been following on Instagram for a little while, and I was initially really piqued. My interest was his videos, was the real straightness and the way in which he was able to almost like pierce through my mind into my mind and deliver directly his message. You know, he has a real deep presence in front of the screen, but I believe at all times through his life, right? A real deep presence. I was really touched with his honesty, and I was really touched by the way he delivers his message with us. This real feeling of love and gentleness to when you're hearing it, but it's also the truth, what you need to hear. And today I have with me Rick William.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, brother.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you, man. Pleasure to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, brother. Yeah, really well.
Good. Yeah, I know Rick's coming in from Costa Rica, sunny and warm, I imagine.
Yeah, it's rainy season here right now, but it's still warm. We just got we get like the evening downpours, but for the most part, it's pretty beautiful.
Very lush.
Yeah, man. The jungle here and the nature here is it's just on another level. You know, it's so beautiful. Very blessed.
Yeah, stunning. I often see your videos of you kind of going for walks through the jungle and coming across various different animals.
Yeah, it could be interesting. Yeah. yeah. Especially when I'm from England originally, North England, Newcastle. So, you know, encountering, you know, snakes and giant spiders and all sorts is not something I grew up with. So you kind of got to get a little accustomed to that, but it's all good. You know, it's all good.
Must pack quite a surprise when you're wandering through and you see a little snake slithering through the undergrowth.
Yeah, or in your house. You know, I had one in my house last month. It just wouldn't leave. It was about 3 meters long.
Wow.
It was pretty big. It wasn't poisonous, but it was enough to set the nervous system off. You know, when you see a snake, it's just something that happens in your body. You're like, oh. So that was a whole experience. Yeah.
Oh man, what do you do? Is there like a snake buster you can call?
Yes, there's a snake buster. That's exactly what we got. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And so the man comes with a little, because I've seen them in like, especially if you ever go to like pet stores and they have snakes, they come with a little kind of hook thing to come and
hook. That's exactly what he had. Yeah, that's exactly what he had.
Oh man, what a job! Imagine that. That's just being a job. People just call you and go, "Hey, I've got this snake." You're like, "Yeah, I'll be around."
Yeah, but this guy loved them, man. It was his passion. It was like he absolutely loved snakes. He was just not scared at all. Just zero fear. Just absolutely loved them. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. So it's just really his. He's just doing what he loves. Then he's like going around.
Exactly.
And his phone must ring, and he must just be filled with joy every single time his phone rings.
Yeah, he was a super chill guy, super happy. Yeah, he kind of looked a little bit like Jason Momoa.
Oh yeah,
you know Jason Momoa, Aquaman.
Yeah,
he kind of looked a little bit like him, and he just popped in, picked the snake up, and off he went.
Oh, amazing! Did he say where he puts them? Does he put them back into the wild?
Yeah, he takes them in a box and just moves them away. Otherwise, they'll just keep coming back.
Oh, great. I was just having this vision of him at home, and he has this like a huge array of snakes that just live with him and he's home with him.
Maybe. Who knows?
All right, enough about the snakes. And actually more about yourself and the work that you do. Like, what is it how do you describe the work that you do now?
That's such a good question. I just help human beings live more fulfilled lives, brother. And I use a variety of tools, whatever I can get my hands on. from somatic work to coaching to neurofeedback. Basically just whatever I can use to help someone live a more fulfilled and connected life. That's what I do. And I help entrepreneurs, CEOs, anyone who's really just trying to lead and live a life from their heart. And I work with them to help expand that vision and just set them up in the best way that I can, and just really support them back into really just expressing the truth of who they are.
It's beautiful.
It's a blessing. Work. It's a blessing. I love it.
To be working with people who are wanting to express their heart's desire constantly. It must be very energizing, very nurturing.
Yeah, super nourishing. It's beautiful to see it's beautiful to watch a flower flourish, or it's beautiful to watch whether it be a puppy or an animal grow into like its fullest, bigger version, right? And it's beautiful to be able to work with human beings and see that growth and that expansion, and just seeing people live just more connected, more expressed lives. And I think it's just so beautiful. I was having this conversation with a friend last week, and I was like, if we evolve past money at some point in our evolution as a species, like I would still be doing this in some form or fashion. I really would.
I guess that's the ultimate type of work. It goes beyond work. Becomes one's life it's expressions of your own heart, right? It's that.
Yeah. That's what it feels like.
It's beautiful. I'd love to hear that. And how did you come to this line of beautiful work?
Oh man, yeah, that's a good question. My own suffering, brother. Just through my own suffering, and trying to resolve that through whatever means that I could. And I tried everything, and I had so many blessings on my journey, but I really just tried everything just to figure it out, like why I was not feeling fulfilled, why I was feeling depressed, anxious, why I was having suicidal ideation at some point, why I had drug addiction. And I was really just trying to get to the root of this. And sometimes I didn't know exactly where I was going, but it always felt like there was some type of guidance, within me that was trying to navigate me back to me. And I think that's at some level what is happening to us all. I think there is this inner truth that we all feel. We all have this innate sense of our own inner truth, our own inner heart. And I think that's what's trying to guide us. It's trying to guide us back to us. And often what's in the way is just, whether it be personal stories, personal trauma, ancestral trauma, different events and beliefs that happen to us, they can sometimes interfere with who we believe we are. And our work and my work is just to remove that so that we can be, and so we can express the truth of what we are. But I think that's the guiding principle that's driving us all, I really do.
That is there. It's almost, sometimes we find ourselves, and I'm sure this has been your experiences, that we find ourselves in these repeating, looping patterns. We keep putting ourselves in certain situations. And it's I felt that, whatever is guiding us, whether it's our own heart, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, it's almost, sometimes look at it like a bit like a video game. And it's a bit like we keep redoing a certain level because we need to complete this level to move to the next level so we can evolve onwards.
I love that. Yeah, it's exactly how it feels. Yeah, like we repeat the lesson until we've learned it. Which can be challenging, but I think we're always like, just, for anyone who's listening, whatever you're doing that might not be working, whether it be addictions or whether it be certain things that just keep showing up over and over again, I think that's, in a way, as much as it might not seem it, from my own experience, there's perfection in that. It's like we're trying to figure it out. And these lessons present themselves in ways that are essentially having us try to figure that out. And one of my teachers says that there's no such thing as a bad response, only an adaptive response. And that's Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And I truly believe that. I think everything that we're doing, we're trying to adapt to our environment, to our surroundings. And whatever it is that we're doing, however shameful it may have been, whatever you might have done, I really do believe that every single human being, without exemption, is truly trying their best with the cards that they were dealt. I truly believe that.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. And it's when we can, I feel like if we can accept that and see that in other people as well, that creates a huge amount of compassion, right? For those
Yeah.
people and what they're dealing with. Because often, I feel like often the prevailing narrative in the world is that other people are doing us wrong, right? Almost deliberately sometimes as well. Like I do a lot of work with men around like dating and relationships, and a lot of the narrative they have is like people are doing this to trying to hurt me. And it's like, well, no, actually, most of the time people are just trying to do their best and trying to protect themselves, and they're so locked into their own thoughts and their own mind that they can't extend beyond to think about how the impact and how that's impacting other people.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like most people, and I know from most mistakes that I've made in my own life, I wasn't consciously making them, but often some of those actions did lead to the upset and to hurting other people. But I wasn't conscious of it at the time. Once I became conscious of it, then I was aware of it, and then I was able to, firstly forgive myself for that, and then if necessary, if that relationship was still there, or even if it wasn't there, extending that outwards and apologizing, and letting people know that we're fucking sorry, we fucked up, and that was a mistake, my bad, and I've learned the lesson.
Those apologies go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it can be hard to say sometimes, and our pride gets in the way.
Yeah, for sure. But liberating if you do.
Yes. Yeah. Because often we feel that there's some sort of shame in apologizing, like an admitting of wrongdoing. But actually, when we do say, oh, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. I fucked up. I shouldn't have treated you that way. And I'm sorry. There's like a huge release for us, like a physical bodily release of like letting go, really.
Somatic release. Yeah. The energy is able to move itself from the body. And just speaking into that, I think what you said there was really interesting, is that sometimes I think it can be hard to apologize because we haven't forgiven ourselves first. And I think that's why if you start with forgiving yourself, you can actually allow that to sink in. And that can be challenging because it can mean that what you did was shameful, and you might have to sit with that, sit with the pain of what you did. But in the sitting of that, in allowing that emotion to move itself and to be felt and to be transmuted, essentially alchemizing it, and you move that within your own body first, then you're able to, go speak to the other and actually say sorry without having that guilt or shame with that strong of a charge, or the charge is gone completely because you've reconciled it. So now you're just repairing.
It allows us to also hear whatever's coming up for them as it is, instead of hearing it through our kind of our big amount of shame that we're still holding on to.
Yeah. Because shame just paralyzes us, and it's a really challenging emotion to feel because it paralyzes us. So if we can move through our own shame, it's incredibly liberating, and even more beautiful if you can move through that shame with another, whether it be a coach like yourself or anyone. It could be a really good friend who can hold safe space for you, and you can vocalize what it is that you are feeling shameful about and have them hold that love and compassion. I feel is something that happens in the space of being seen and being witnessed that is also really, really transformative and really beautiful. I don't know if you've experienced that with your clients.
No, definitely. I've witnessed it with my clients. And what springs to my mind actually as well is I was on a men's retreat recently, a couple of months ago now. I keep saying a month ago, but I was like, no, the time has flown by. And one of the processes there was actually bringing up things that we held shame around and being witnessed by the other men, the 20, 25 other men there. And like you said, it's like being witnessed and being seen and accepted in those moments by other men, and being like, I have this shame and there's this thing I did, and being accepted. It was just like, you could see people. There were moments where you saw people's physical bodies like drop and shift and posture change afterwards. Like, it's amazing to witness.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. And I think the other thing that happens, I don't know if you experienced this too, when you're in a group setting like that and everyone's revealing the things that they're shameful about, one of the things that I noticed was like, holy shit, we're all in this.
Yeah.
And that just the feeling of that, like, oh no, we're actually all carrying shit that we feel ashamed for. We're all in this together. It's not just little old me feeling the shame. We're like, this is a human thing. It's a part of being human. And that, for me, that experience was super liberating too, because, you know, we can get so stuck in our stories thinking it's all just us. And really, we're all in this fucking thing together.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in hearing other people's shame, it relates to other things that we've done that maybe didn't come to our minds then. And through seeing them release, we've allowed a piece of us to be let go of and to move through us. And it's just like, there's a power in that, in group sharing and group letting go. It's amazing. It's really transformative as an experience.
Yeah. Super beautiful.
Because it's almost very counterintuitive, because we feel like, oh, we won't be accepted. If I share this, no one will accept me. No one will want to be around me. I will be a social pariah. But in the right setting, when shared, it actually gives us some of our greatest healing.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And it is kind of ironic. It's a paradox. It's the feelings that we are most afraid of, when confronted, is what also will set us free.
Yes. Yeah. Because they've imprisoned us almost.
Yeah. They're keeping us at whatever level of experience that we're experiencing. And once that can be felt and expressed and released, that energy that was once kind of holding us, it's almost like it's in our energetic field at some level. And once that's released, that energy can then, move and channel itself into more productive means, as opposed to beating ourselves up, or those, incessant thoughts that just repeat themselves over and over and over again. You don't know where they're coming from, but often the place that they're coming from is the root. And at that root, once that's been felt, released, and expressed, that is where liberation exists. And it's so beautiful, so beautiful to have experienced it myself, but also witness others experience that too. It's like I'm like, why are we not taught this? It's
yeah. It stops us from being free.
Yeah. I think that's where we're heading there, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I look at now, I've got a friend who's a school teacher. She teaches primary school kids here in London. And she does meditations with them. When I took her to some breath work, and she was like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, maybe I could teach the little kids this a little bit, to help them relax. Even if it's just getting to do like 10 breaths to relax and be present. And this is what's happening in schools now, because the teachers are learning these things. And I'm like, wow, that didn't exist when I was a primary schooler or a secondary school. So there's so much hope for what comes.
That's amazing. Yeah, super amazing.
So we've gathered here today. I love that phrase. We've gathered here today. Feels like I'm in church, but to really talk about to talk about how we create personal freedom, how we are in the game of life of creating the life and the destiny that we desire, right? That our heart desires more than anything. And I know you have a beautiful theory about how there are kind of three facets to this and how they intertwine. But before we get onto that beautiful bit of work, is actually to look at how do most people operate in life to kind of create what they want, and not always from that place of their heart, but actually maybe it's kind of what society has told us that we should want, or what our egos think we should want to maybe create a level of validation. How do you see it that we put ourselves into action to create what we want in our lives?
That's a great question. And I think if we start with the problem first, or where this is kind of originating itself from, I think that might help map it out. So if you think about it, we come into the world, and then the world impresses itself against us. We're essentially just receptors to life itself. So unless you are born into a family of which are very well regulated and are able to accommodate your evolution and needs, and be able to really attune to that, which is an incredible skill set, which most human beings do not have. And these are the things that we're learning. These are the tools and resources that we're learning at this time, but most people don't have that, and for good reason. So we're coming into this world, and then, society's telling us what to do, mom and dad's telling us what to do, and everyone's got their best interest at heart. I truly believe that. I think there is good intent behind it. We've come from, if you just look back 100, 200 years ago, things were pretty rough. You go back 1,000 years ago, things were crazy. And, there's levels of, programming in which have all been passed down the line until we get to this point in time. And therefore, then everyone's impressing upon us what they think we should do in order to stay safe. However, that can often conflict with that person's unique individuality as a human being, because all of us are completely different. And we witness this. If you go look at 2 or 3 babies, or 2 or 3 6-month-year-olds, or 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, you witness them, you can see they've all got this unique personality. They've all got this unique essence, and you can almost see it in their eyes. You can feel it in their presence. There's a uniqueness about them. But then reality and life impresses itself upon that child. And then that child then does these certain things to please mom and dad, and to please society, and to fit into the tribe, and to fit into school. And that can then lead to, severe dissatisfaction in life. And when we just look at the statistics on that, I think the UK and America had the highest level of satisfaction in the world, and it was only something like 30%. 30% of people were satisfied with the jobs. Only 20% of people were passionate about their jobs. And 32% of people were actively disengaged, which means that not only are they disengaged, they're actively working against the thing that they're doing.
Wow.
And you can imagine that in a lot of workplaces, if you are actively disengaged, you're essentially working against your teammates. You're working against your employer to essentially, because you're so dissatisfied, you're in a kind of self-destructive mode. And that's like, 31% of people. That's a lot of people. So there is this immense dissatisfaction. I think when we look at mental health, we bring that into the picture, and we can see all of these signals. And it's like, why is that happening? And I think the reason that that's happening is because we're going after things that aren't intrinsically meaningful and fulfilling to the individual themselves. And I think in the future, our education will be designed around helping young individuals discover what that is, because that's going to make a more happy human being, a more fulfilled human being, and a more productive community and society. But we're just not at that place in time. And we just have to accept that this is the current reality. So at this time, you have to kind of take that on yourself. You have to take that mission on yourself. And that's where we go from that being the outside game to the inner game. And the inner game is about discovering that for yourself, getting in touch with your own emotions, your own inner compass, learning how this human body works, learning how your mind works, learning how your nervous system works, and that you can learn how to regulate that up from into a activated sympathetic state, and learning how to calm it into the parasympathetic or dorsal vagal state, and then learning how to come back into connection. This is the human vehicle. This is the your vehicle for your 70, 80, 90, 100 years of your life. And it's your responsibility at this time to learn how that vehicle works. And when you can do that, when you can really tap in and really connect with yourself and begin to maybe release some of these emotions which have been blocking you from your expression, you can free up that energy and you can connect into what is actually meaningful and impactful to you. And then that becomes your inner compass. And then from there, you can then navigate to what is in alignment with my inner compass. And decisions become clear. It's if you've got a career option here, which is to go and, become a carpenter, or maybe over here is to become a therapist or a coach, or over here is to become a pilot. If you're attuned into your own body, into your own feelings, your own emotions, then you can discern which one of those is actually true and is actually right for you. But if you don't have that connection, the chances are you're going to be operating from someone else's desires and beliefs upon what they think that you should do. And you're never going to be satisfied when you do that, because you're always doing it to appease and please someone else. and you're going to arrive there and feel dissatisfied. And I know that because I made that mistake several times myself, until the point I was like, this is not working. How do I figure this shit out? And that's what led me to this work.
Wow. Yeah. And I really feel this from a really personal point of view. A few weeks ago, I just quit my day job in tech, which I've been doing for pretty much 16 years, because I had become, I wouldn't say I was actively dissatisfied, but I was being dissatisfied. I was dissatisfied. And I was like, and I've probably been dissatisfied, really, if I'm honest, for maybe the best part of 7 or 8 years. And I've just been kind of going through it because, this is my trajectory. I'm comfortable and all those things. But it was this feeling of, and I imagine that you can resonate with some people listening, is that you wake up and you're like, oh, I've got to do this again. Or that feeling of the kind of classic feeling of Sunday evening or Monday morning where you're like, oh God, I've got to start this over again. That kind of Monday morning depression, which is such an acceptable feeling amongst people, as if it was, this is how it was meant to be. Whereas, I'm talking to Rick now, it's the evening and it's like coming up to 10 and I'm full of energy for this conversation. I'm full of beans for this conversation and listening and hearing, because this is what I love doing. Right. And similar to what you described, is that for many years, I couldn't put a finger on it. I was like, what do I even like doing? Because I was so entrenched with these ideas that had been coming from me from, my parents. You need to get a good, safe job. My parents are like immigrants from Jamaica. So they came here for safety and security. So they imprinted on me that you must be in something safe. You need to be in something that earns you good money, and having good money will give you a good life. Right. And, it's like you described before, is we get these messages from outside that get passed down to us and we have no choice about them. And often we never even realize that they weren't our own choosing.
Yeah.
They feel like pre-programmed software to us.
Yes.
And it takes this time to come back in tune with oneself, one's own feelings, unpicking some emotions, unpicking why we have certain reactions, to kind of, like you said, unblock ourselves, like remove some of these boulders almost that sit inside us. And it allows us to retune ourselves like radios, almost, so that we can, as you said, point ourselves and be like, that feels like what I want to do. I'm going to follow that, actually. I'm going to follow that a little bit more and a little bit more, because that makes my heart burst open. That brings, I feel my heart cracking open and wanting to, pour myself into that. But if we are so blocked by what we're told we should be, how we should live, our own kind of what's passed down to us from our family, our friends and society, or our fears as well, right? We can't even start to dial into what we would love doing, because we're just so bombarded with the pressures from outside.
So true. So true. And what I was hearing there when you were sharing about your mom and dad coming from Jamaica, like that which they imprinted on you, I believe would have been completely true and completely great advice for that time period and for what they had uniquely experienced. However, the world changes and we're simultaneously evolving. So we're often getting passed down software, in a sense, that is outdated. And then it's our job, our responsibility to update the software based on the environment that we're living in.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and it's something that I started to see for myself. And I think it started to come probably about 10 years ago, maybe even longer, actually. But I was like, they don't have an accurate map of what reality is now and how the world is now. And initially I was angry with them. I was like, how can you be so stupid? What's wrong with you? And then I started to realize, as I learned more about family and I spoke to uncles and aunts about their experience of living, my grandparents, and how life had been for them, and the traumatic lives that my parents had lived. And I started to feel more and more compassion towards them and understanding, and be like, this is why you have told me these things. This made complete sense for you. With the broken software that you had been downloaded with. But I now have a choice and chance here to update the software, to rewrite this going forward.
Absolutely. And then you can be a transitional character in your genetic line. And then based on your own evolution, it's like, can you keep your software up to date as we evolve collectively as a species? And that's where I think like constant growth and, having whether it be great friends who are also on a similar path, or a mentor, or coaches, or people that can constantly help you grow and evolve so that you can kind of keep your software up to date. Otherwise, with the speed that we're moving, in a year's time, what is at the forefront today is kind of like behind, like we're already a year ahead. So there is this, like, we are evolving as a species. So we're in that play of nature, play of life, play of God, the universe, Krishna, Buddha, Allah, whatever your belief system is, we are evolving into something. And it's like, can we keep the question I ask is like, how do I keep my software updated? What are the things that I can be doing to help keep my software updated so I can stay tuned, so I can stay connected, so that I can better serve my relationships, friends, community, clients, etc.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, in this present moment in time, what are those things that we can engage in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can answer personally the things that I'm doing right now, and then I'd be curious to what you're doing. So what I'm using right now is a lot of somatic practices that has been evolutionary for me. It's been completely game changing. And the whole idea is that the old model of mental health and the personal development space, self-help space, was that it was like all about mindset. Change your mindset, change your life. Use affirmations, and that will help transform your life. And it's not that that doesn't work. It's a but. We need to get the body on board also. We need to get the nervous system on board in order for that to feel true and feel aligned. And the reason that is at a scientific level is that we have 80% afferent fibers which run from the body up until the brain. And we have 20% running from the brain to the body. So the body is 4 times more effective. So if you imagine you've got 2 rivers side by side, and the first river is coming down, you're looking at the amount of water that's coming down. And the second river, if you quantify or you quadruple times that amount of water by 4, you've got a big gushing stream coming down. Which one do you want to jump on in terms of transformation? I want to jump on the one that's 4 times more powerful personally. And in doing that, it has led to just energy being released. It's been truly transformative. And then from that place, getting all the mind stuff on board too. The mindset tools are awesome. Affirmations are awesome if your body's on board and it feels true, if it feels right in your body, if it feels safe for you to do that. But if, earning, I don't know, whether it be 100,000 or $1 million a year, whatever it is, whatever that number is for you, if that doesn't feel safe for your body, you're not going to be able to go do it. If going and jumping on an Instagram live for your nervous system doesn't feel safe because when you were 3 years old, you were bullied and picked on for standing up in front of everyone in class and you got laughed at, that is going to be entrenched in your nervous system. Therefore, jumping on a live or a Zoom like this is going to feel like it's impossible. Your body's going to do everything to reject that because your nervous system is going to be like, this isn't safe. So the first thing we got to do is get the body on board and create that inner safety. And then from there, that's really when things get really, really interesting, in my opinion. And then I'm using other tools like, I use meditation every day, and also visualization, but also getting my nervous system on board with that, really tuning to those feelings of what I want to experience in my life and conditioning my body to that, because the body is so conditioned to look for fear. Whereas when we can begin to condition ourselves to look for what is great, to look for what's working, to look for what we can be grateful for, to creating small celebrations for little things that we do, and actually allowing that to land in the body and just be like, well done for that, man, like, well done, and allowing that to sink in, we're beginning to train ourselves in a completely different way. We're looking for what's working, what's winning. And then we can look at the things that aren't working, but we're predominantly focused on what is, and that's just going to create more and more of that. And that's certainly been true in my life. Curious to what's been how that lands for you, and then what's been working for you too.
It's been working for me. I think, what paths have I been the last few years? I kind of flow through things. I think something's been really consistent for me is I did a lot of work with a mentor called William Whitecloud around intuition and learning to tap into and feel my intuition, which has been golden for me actually, because it's learning to feel the world. Feel what am I feeling? What am I being drawn to, and allowing that to arise into my mind and imagine that. And a bit like I said, like visualizing what would it, a question I often ask myself is, what would I love in any situation? Like even, you know, I come on here this evening and I was like, what would I really love? And I was like, I'd love us to have a wonderful conversation that weaves and dives through different topics, but is incredibly insightful, but enjoyable, right? And then you go, okay, that's where I'm gonna put my focus. That's what I'm going to amplify in my mind, in my feelings. Like what's the overriding feeling of that? That's expansion. It's joy. It's excitement. And there's even, you know, in that excitement, it's like feeding that. And it's funny. There's something I spoke to someone earlier, and we were talking about seduction and sex. And he described how we often mislabel excitement as fear, when actually it could really just be excitement, but we're not really discerning in the difference. So starting to, you know, feel that excitement, that's been really groundbreaking for me, and doing that daily, and keeping on that. Yoga, like I do tantric yoga, so it's like really focused on the chakras and bringing in certain energy into my body in the mornings has been beautiful. Breath work is something that's been kind of creeping in on me more and more. Even today, I had a very busy day, felt quite stressful today. And I was like, before my evening started, I was going to do 10 minutes of breath work. So the 10 minutes on my floor. And that was really beautiful. And then I did 4 minutes for some reason at some point, just before I jumped on a previous recording. And I got this message right at the end, after I finished the breath work, was, you're doing a really good job. It's okay.
Oh, man.
And it almost brought me to tears, you know, because I saw how I was beating myself up through the day, of going, oh, you're not doing enough, you're being too slow. I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's the thing I haven't stopped to feel into. So like the breath work there has been really amazing, as well as meditation, which is something, you know, I dip in and out of different practices, but I think probably the one that I go back to most of all is Vipassana meditation. I find it to be very powerful. So yeah, those things have been like great daily practices, and things like ayahuasca. I've done a few journeys over the years, over the last kind of 5 years. And that's really cleared emotional debris that's sitting, blocking me. So those have been some really great things that I've kind of brought into my life.
Beautiful, brother. Resonate with so much of those. Yeah, likewise, you know, breath work, plant medicine, meditation. I think they're like foundational tools. So beneficial, so useful.
And I think, you know, one thing to add into that is actually focusing on connection with people. Like focusing on the being in connection with people, like making an effort to actually really be curious about other human beings. I feel like that's something that's been added to my life. It's something I think I've innately had, but something I've been putting more focus on, about their experience of life, and putting more focus on that. And I feel that that's brought a lot into my life. I don't know, it's made my body just feel a lot more like in tune with other people. But I feel that's another thing that's really, really helped me over the last kind of, definitely last kind of, in this last year, 2 years. I mean, it's been a wild year and a half, but like putting focus on that.
It makes a lot of sense to why you're so good at this thing. You know, because I think you do have that. You have a beautiful curiosity about you, and just all of your questions, and just your presence in our, you know, conversation off air was just, you just have this genuine intrigue and curiosity, which I think is beautiful quality, brother.
Now I've lost my train of thought. I was basking in that for a moment.
Basking it, brother.
Yeah, I think so we're getting in tune with our bodies, right? We're starting to work through some of the blockages that exist in different parts of our being. How do we go about then to express that into the world in a way that is authentic to us and powerful into changing the world?
It's a great question, and I think it's going to be unique to every individual, because, you know, someone's expression might just be that they just want to be a great father or a great mother, and that might be like their key purpose, what they feel is their key purpose and brings them the most fulfillment. But for someone else, it might be starting a podcast or writing a book or creating some type of movement to make some type of change that they feel they want to see in the world. Or it could be that they want to become a musician or an artist, and that's how they want to express. So I think for every individual, it's going to be unique. And it's only really in going on that inward journey and connecting to yourself that can begin to unfold. I don't think anyone can tell you what your purpose is. I think people can help guide you back to what your purpose is. I think people can reflect to you and help give you tools and practices and all of the things to help guide that path. But really it is, the individual's responsibility to get in touch with who you are, get in touch with how you feel. And then from there, what are you going to create from that space? And I, from what I've witnessed in all my clients, it becomes self-evident. It becomes self-evident. And there's tools and practices that we can do that I do with my clients where we might do a regression exercise once the trauma has been released, once they're in touch with the nervous system, once they're, building a, environment and habits that are useful and beneficial to their life. Then we start looking at like purpose and service. And, we can do exercise where we regress back through someone's life and we can pull out the most, meaningful, just like potent, beautiful memories that individual has that might be lodged in their subconscious. And we can bring that to the forefront. And then that's going to create a list of experiences. And those lists of experiences are going to have a list of emotions. And then we can work out which are the 2 or 3 pivotal emotions that really bring you the most joy and fulfillment. Then we can have you focus on that. And it's like, what do we create from there? Once you're in touch with that, once you know that, what's going to be in alignment with that? And it'll be, then you can start, navigating your life as that being the compass and deciding, does that feel like those? No. What about this? And then you're really becoming your own artist, your own poet, your own creator, where you're beginning to then experiment with what's going to align most with my core feelings that I want to feel and express. And that's a beautiful process to witness.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things I really got out of that is, first of all, it can be very easy for people to think that a process like this is unstructured, right? But what I really heard there was from you was actually there's a real structure to it. It's like finding the memories, attaching the emotions and finding multiple memories with these, and then having this structured approach to like, where do I want to feel this more? And there's a structure to this. It's not just the kind of like, oh, let's see what I'm feeling today and flow with that all the time.
Yeah. Well, this is the whole thing when we're talking about, you mentioned before the 3 games, which is something I talk about, the inner game, the outer game, the integrated game. And that if you're too focused on the outer game, you're doing it for other people, which is in terms of energy dynamics, that's a little more masculine. We're projecting out our energy, projecting out. The inner game, you could say, is more feminine, the body. You could say the unconscious is the feminine, the unknown, chaos. And the integrated game is that kind of inner marriage between the 2, is yes, being in touch with my own body, my own emotions, really having that become the compass, and then using the masculine energy, which is like the outward energy, to navigate the desires. So it's like this balance and this dance between structure and chaos, order and chaos, yin and yang, and that really then becomes the dance of life. So yes, absolutely, there are structures and things that we can use. And then in that, like the riverbed, it allows the riverbed allows the river to flow. If you've just got no riverbed, it's just like a mess, So it's that balance between the 2. And I've been too far in both directions, and, eventually learning how to navigate that back. And that's beautiful when we can dance like that,
And then they constantly informing one another as well. It's like a cycle of like putting out, feeling in, putting out, feeling in.
Yeah. And it's like updating itself, just like a relationship. And I'm sure you work with this with your clients and your tantra. It's that, that dance between the 2 polarities. And if you've just got one polarity, just like straight masculine, that could be interesting for a little bit for your feminine partner, and they're just going to be able to surrender into pure feminine. But if you can learn how to play both, it's like you become an expert. And it's like learning how to, write or draw with 2 hands, or play football with 2 feet. Or if you're skateboard in your life, you can skate regular and goofy, like you really become a master when you can master both. And then you can choose, when do I want to deploy masculine energy? When do I want to deploy more feminine energy? And you're really then just becoming the master of your own vessel, which is, super interesting stuff. And something I'm still exploring, it's like a never ending game, but life just becomes much more interesting for me personally.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. And it's a real exploration, of oneself and the world that we're in, to be moving between the two, to be dancing in both worlds. It's interesting. One of the things that kind of jumps into my mind actually is, what are the kind of pitfalls that people find themselves, falling into upon this path of the, the inner and outer game, an integrated game?
I can speak about my own pitfalls.
Yeah.
So my early 20s, I was, I built a business, and I was very into the gym. I was very outwardly focused, and I was playing the outer game. And, I was hoping that when I did that, I would get some type of emotional payoff, but I didn't. And I couldn't figure that out for some time. So the downside to just playing the outer game is that you're playing it for other people. I was playing that to get the validation, or to hopefully get the emotions that I wanted to feel, but they were never built on my own foundation. So there was never any outcome there. So that was the downfall of just playing the outer game, is that it's never going to be, chances are it's never going to be fulfilling. It certainly wasn't for me. It certainly wasn't for most of the people that I have witnessed and spoken to, who've been able to, break through and change the pattern, as well as, witnessing my clients who are going through that same process. So that's the downfalls to that game. If you're just playing the inner game, which I played for a while, then my life kind of just become too open. It was like, I was just focused on being present, and just meditating for a lot, and doing a lot of yoga and doing a lot of inward practice. And it almost become like a bit of a void in and of itself. It was almost like it didn't have the meaning that I was hoping for. Yes, I was feeling great, but it wasn't really, it was more like just about my own inner experience. And it was like, I don't know, it felt like it was also missing something. And I realized that, and, that I had kind of maybe gone too far that into the other direction. And then I had to, like, okay, well, what's missing here? And then I had to bring it back to, bring back some of those more masculine qualities, and then beginning to integrate the two, which is also a part of healing work, which is happening through, breath work, through coaching, through therapy, through plant medicine journeys. This was all beginning to piece itself back together. And then I started using both of those energies. Both of those energies started to feel like they were becoming integrated in my being. And that's where I have felt the best. I don't know about you. Have you found yourself with too far one way and then too far the other way? What's been your experience in this?
Yeah. When I think of it now, I traveled for 2 years constantly, like endlessly. I just traveled for 2 years. And there's definitely a point there when I was just, and it was beautiful. I was just so in being wherever I was being. Like, I'm in a new place. This is really beautiful. I'm just going to wander around the streets for days, and just see the tiny beauties that are there. I remember I've got some photographs of some pigeons sitting on telephone wires. And I remember I spent a good half an hour just photographing the different ways in which these pigeons were landing, because it was so interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it felt I felt very connected inwards, right? But actually what sometimes I lacked was being connected outwards to what was happening around me, right? To the people I was meeting. And then on the flip side, when I was, all about kind of like trying to make money and build business and build my life, when I think kind of my probably like mid-20s, I was very disconnected inwardly, right? I was very disconnected with what's going on inside. And, as you were saying that, I was like, it's this real, when we go too far one way, there's some disconnection for us, right? So we go really inwards. We sometimes become disconnected to human beings and other beings and their experience around us, because we're always so focused on our inner being and inner experience, that we almost lose this ability to really be focused on what's going on outside. But then when we're so focused on outside and producing and creating, we're disconnected from our kind of inner being as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And how did you come back into balance?
Wow. I think, it was a process over the last few years. So, connecting to love, the love that I have for myself, and also the love that I have for other people, other pursuits as well. And connecting to what I love allowed me a lot more to be like, I can feel this, all of this, but also acknowledging there's things outside of me that I also love, other people, other types of experience, pursuits, what I want to create. And I found that that's been a way to keep in balance. But, I think the harmony is always shifting. It's always, you can, some days you're like, I've been a bit too much outwardly trying to create and do. And then there's some days you're like, okay, I've probably just sat and done 2 hours of breathwork today, and I meditated for 2 hours, and I haven't actually even thought about what's going on around me. And it's this kind of, when you think of a seesaw, I think of seesaw as being a kid, right? And it's always kind of like that. We're not always striving for a balance, because actually balance is just like this constant shifting of a little bit back and forward.
Beautiful. That resonates.
It's to be able to being in tune of ourselves and what's happening around us, to kind of observe the shifts and adjust and be nimble and so forth in the creating of what we desire in each moment.
Beautifully shared, brother.
And so we've got this integrated way, right? The masculine, the feminine, right? And it sounds very much, about us, what we're creating. How do we then integrate that with other people? If we want to create those sorts of endeavors, how do we kind of integrate that with other people's integrating? Is there like a next stage on from that, or does that kind of naturally start to happen?
Could you rephrase the question, just so I'm not sure I fully understand?
Yeah. So when we're thinking about, we're creating our own kind of, we're looking inward, we're looking at our own feminine, our own body, and, moving our own, shifting our own blocks and nervous system. And then we start to create from our heart outwards about what we desire. But everyone else, there might be other people we come into contact with, was doing the same process, is doing the same thing with themselves, so that we're not kind of alone in the world doing our thing. Is there anything we need to keep in mind, or anything we need to add on to bring ourselves in alignment with other people and what they're creating, if we so choose to?
Well, I think that kind of naturally unfolds itself, at least it has in my experience. But yes, for sure, like we want to think about, like, the communities that we're surrounding ourselves with, in terms of like the people. And the reason that we're having this conversation, because there's resonance between us, because we're both walking that type of path. So naturally you bump into people who you have resonance with, and then you actually realize that you're all walking this path together, and then you can help support each other by, getting on each other's podcasts or supporting each other's posts. And, you're essentially just like cheering each other on as we all walk towards, similar goals. And that might be totally different for different people. We're in the coaching space, but you could be into basketball, you could be into music or dance, and you're going to meet those people who are in alignment with whatever it is that you're doing. And then it's just building that community out from there. And, you can have your online community, and then you can start looking at, like, where in the world is your community, and that might be in London, it might be in Bali, it might be in Costa Rica, it might be in the States, or wherever that might be. And then, can you get yourself into places like that, so that you can be around the type of people and in the type of environment that feels the most nourishing for you, so that you can show up and serve others in a better way, ultimately.
Becomes a game of like taking on a bigger responsibility of creating community, which can then impact other community and kind of impact the kind of world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all touching each other. COVID has made that clear. We are literally all touching each other. And especially with the internet, you can't even isolate us. We're still touching each other. But with the internet as well, we're literally like, we are all connected. And, if you can show up, it is my belief, if you can show up in a more authentic, truer, more connected, loving version of yourself, that's just going to ripple effect everywhere. And people are going to feel that. And people are going to ask you, like, what are you doing? Like, what is it that you're doing? Like, I can really feel the change in you. Or, like, I knew you a few years ago and you're doing this thing now. And like, how do you do that? If they're open-minded, the other people are going to be like, fuck you, like that, you're going to have all that too. And you got to be ready for that at the same time, because when you change, it's going to either ruffle feathers negatively or ruffle feathers positively. But yeah, just get ourselves around people who are like-minded and who feel nourishing to us. We can feel what, imagine right now, if you're listening to this, like, think of a nourishing plate of food, whatever that is for you. Think of a nourishing plate of food. Feel how that feels in the body. And then think of whatever an unnourishing plate of food is. That might be like a pizza or a McDonald's, or, no judgment, but whatever that unnourishing plate of food is. And your body has a reaction to that, like a somatic reaction. It knows. And it knows the same with people too. It can feel, like you were speaking about learning about intuition from one of your mentors. We can feel who feels nourishing and who doesn't. And if you can keep walking towards that which is nourishing for your life, I think we're all going to benefit.
It's just the ripples and knock-on effect. It starts to have a global impact. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like a metronome. I don't know if you've ever seen the video of a metronome.
No.
Where you literally send one of the things off and it just starts getting a beat. And then eventually, 2 minutes later, all of them are just like in harmony, just do.
Wow.
And I think that's what's happening with us. We're just getting into resonance. We're getting into balance. We're getting into harmony. I think that's where we want to go. The reason that we want love, we want connection, we want community, because I think that's in our soul. We want freedom. We feel this because I think that is who we truly are. And I think that's why we know it, and that's why we can recognize it. I think that's why we're heading in that direction.
Our soul knows that we are sovereign and free beings, and but we are all sovereign and free beings, and is drawn to that real freedom, not this fake freedom that we often like run after. Freedom to sleep with who we want and do as much drugs as we want and all that. But like real freedom of our hearts and of our souls.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, like you say, I think the soul knows.
Right. This is, I feel like it's a good point to start to wrap up. We really weaved in and out of the topic and covered so much, and I think for everyone, you can really start to see the importance of why a lot of people are stressing the importance of doing the inner work, of starting to understand, to feel your emotions, to look at what's blocking you, to actually create outwards, because it's not just enough to be focused on what you can create outwards, because you will reach a limit. You'll reach a point where you become blocked and you can only go so far. And I think Rick has put that so well this evening in my time. So I'm sure the listeners are really eager to hear where they can hear more of your wisdom, hear more of what you have to say, and also and work with you as well.
Yeah. Well, probably the best place to connect, I think, is on Instagram. So I put out lots of different, both educational content on Instagram, different videos and stuff that I think if they're into the work and, the type of stuff that you share in your podcast, I think they might resonate. And you can follow me at I am Rick William. And then my website is rickwilliam.com. And if you've enjoyed our conversation about the nervous system, I have a free tool that I send out on there. So if you go to rickwilliam.com, you scroll down like halfway and you put your email in, I'll send you like a free nervous system meditation visualization. So you can really get in touch with, what is, going to stress you out, so you can go into those stresses. Because it's not just about being regulated when we're feeling great. It's about like, how can we go into stress and come back down into connection? How can we go down into depression and shutdown when we're like hiding from life and come back into connection? And how can we train our nervous system like a muscle to do that? So I share that free on my website. I don't send emails frequently, maybe once every few months, once every 4 or 5 months. So you're not going to be spammed. Do not worry. And that's it. Yeah. And if you've enjoyed if you've enjoyed what we've been talking about, I'd love to hear from some of you, like what has resonated, what really stood out for you. And if you have any questions or just any feedback, anything you think that you'd like to share, just reach out to me on Instagram DM, and I'll do my best. I can't get back to everyone, but I'll do my best to get back to as many of you as I can.
Beautiful, yeah. And I'm literally gonna, after we finish this recording, I'm gonna go and hop onto Rick's site and download that too. So I highly recommend that you do that. A lot of Rick's content is really, particularly a lot of your videos are very actionable. There's things you can take away and do in your life. So I highly recommend you go and watch some of those, and come with a pen and pad, because there's a lot for you to learn.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, bro. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for everyone who's listening, who's just into this work, to showing up, better for yourself as a man or a woman, so that you can show up, better for the world. And I just commend everyone who's walking this journey. So thank you, everyone, as well, for showing up.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for your beautiful time and your wisdom tonight.
Likewise, brother.
Ciao, ciao, listeners, and we'll see you soon.